Evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. Start of another week. This is our first live since the last one. Actually, I can't remember what the last one was, but it's our first one since the last one. So tonight I'm joined again by two very esteemed people. You might remember Beth from Presence Paranormal. I'm really well seeing it's Monday and I'm off to a flyer already. Paranormal Presence. Beth was with us about 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. And she's came back out of joys again. And you'll know this gentleman down here. He's been on countless times, but we never ever get fed up listening to him. He's the author of the book, The Haunted History. I'm going to get this wrong, Mark, right?
You've never got it right yet, Scott.
Because it's such a big title.
I know.
Haunted. I'll let Mark tell you the book.
The Haunted History of Huntingdonshire.
It's the last word I always struggle with.
Yeah.
Haunted history.
Huntingdonshire doesn't really exist. Well, it does exist, but it's not a county now in its own right. It was absorbed into Cambridgeshire in 1974. So it's now a district, but it retained its name really because of its haunted history. Catherine of Aragon died in Huntingdonshire. Oliver Cromwell came from Huntingdonshire, and Samuel Pepys, the diarist, spent a lot of his time in Huntingdonshire. So because of those historical people, they had to keep the name Huntingdonshire, and so that's what it's all about.
So it's got quite a lot of historical ties. But the name of your books is too long. You know what I mean? It's a great book, by the way, folks. You should get it. Mark will tell you at the end of the show how to get it. He very kindly sent me a copy, and it's about that thick, and it weighs a blooming ton. But however, there's the island for Phantom Seekers Paranormal in. So tonight we are going to be talking about Hingingbrooke House, which Mark is very, very familiar with, and Beth visited recently. And Mark's also got a little exclusive story for us. But before we get into the serious stuff, I do have a question for you guys. Now, Beth knows what these are. Unfortunately. Mark, these, say you get your haunted doll, I don't know if you remember, but a year and a half ago, something like that, there was a big upsurge in the haunted doll.
Yeah.
Carry on, everybody was buying them for Amazon, eBay, whatever, and there was thousands of them, Well, this is the latest one. I don't know if you watch TikTok.
No, I don't.
It's going round on, a load of videos going round on TikTok. I saw the haunted video. People are claiming, now that's just a kid's toy. They're called like a Labubu. But this is the latest thing that's said to be haunted. People are actually burning them. I watched a video the other day. One guy was burning his in a fire. People have said that since they bought them, that their lights just went down the toilet. There's a team up here who shall remain nameless, but I've ripped them apart a couple of times, and I'm going to do it again. They went out and bought one of these a couple of days ago. And they took it home and did experiments with it. Yeah, I know that sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? But each one to their own. But they got results from one of these. Now, my daughter's got two. I think it came from. Actually, came from Paisley Road, West in Glasgow Island, because I was talking to Rigger and he recognised the shop. Her daughter's got two of these. She's had them for maybe about a month and a half. And, we've not had any possessions or anything. There's a Laura. Everyone, sorry, can't stay. No headphones and stone deaf. Laura's staying at her mum's this week and she needs to use headphones and she's left them in the house. So that's how she's not joining us for very long. But, so my question is, do you think this is getting out of hand these days? Or this haunted? I mean, I know there is haunted objects, haunted dolls. There is evidence out there that, some of these things are actually got some kind of attachment. But it's been done to these being haunted now. what do you guys think? Do you think it's just getting way out of hand now?
Go on, Beth. Tell him what you think.
I think there's always been some sort of kid's toy that has something. When it wasn't this, it was Furbies. When it wasn't Furbies, was it the Tickle Me Elmo that was apparently possessed and used to tell children like demonic sayings. I think every generation has that one toy where they're like, it's haunted, can't have it near me. And like for me, it was the Furby. Absolutely disgusting things, terrifying.
Is that the ones with the plastic eyes that opened and shut?
Yeah, like the really weird eyes and the little beak. Oh no! Oh no! Give me a demon any day. Like, but yeah, I think everyone has that one sort of kid's toy, and it's sort of just like a thing that we all do. I think it's almost like a comfort to be like, well, that's haunted. That's a little story that we can all tell each other and have a little bit of fun with. And yeah, I don't generally nothing to them. Obviously, like individual ones are maybe a bit different, but when it's just a toy in general.
Well, these individuals took theirs home and sat it. They've got a load of different objects sitting in this room. I love Furbies like gremlins, and so I think they had the spirit box on at this time. So we were asking, where did you come from? And Hansa came back saying, Europe. You know, well, that narrows it down, you know. But it was, and then there was another answer. We're all right now. But it was not a Scottish accent, the whole lot. So it was a Scottish labubu. It was a Scottish accent that was coming through. And then the guy sat down, and he's supposed to be some kind of medium. That's all I'm going to say. So his other half says to him, what are you getting from this thing? You know, and he says, well, I'm getting that it wants to take me on. Well, that ended me, you know, because this thing's sitting there. Come on then, bring it on. I thought, seriously, I was going to do a live on Facebook about it, but I thought no, because I probably couldn't stop laughing. It says, I'm getting the feeling that it wants to take me on, you know, mano kind of thing. And I thought, how far is this going to go? Now, I mean, Mark, you've been in the paranormal for, you know, a lot of years. You've got tons and tons of experience, and no doubt you've encountered various dolls, objects, whatever. Do you think it's getting out of hand now, as Beth was saying about the Furbies and all the rest of it, with this haunted crap?
I'm going to put a slightly, bizarre twist on this. As you know, Scott, I've told you before, in 1976, yes, I'm that old, when I was 15, I saw what I believed to be a full-bodied apparition of a monk. It was in the daylight and stuff like that. So I went off and I thought, well, I'm going to spend the rest of my days seeing lots of ghosts and things. I've never seen another right from that day. However, what I have experienced quite a lot of times is what you would call poltergeist activity. And these dolls, in very many instances, so I can't remember the doll's name. Is it Anna or something? That's in a cage and
Annabelle.
Annabelle, in a case and been filmed moving and things like that. I just got a strong feeling that a lot of what we call poltergeist activity has nothing to do with the dead. I think it's telekinetic energy from ourselves. And I think that we possibly possess the ability to do these things unconsciously without knowing it. So we could be looking at that doll and thinking it's going to move, and it does move, and albeit it could be us moving it unconsciously. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but I think it's another theory. And as the years go by, and I keep doing this because I want to see another full-bodied apparition, a ghost, having only seen the one in all those years. And, you know, the more I see more often than not, the stuff that I captured is poltergeist activity. And it's not just Mark who sees it. Sometimes I'm with a group of people and they all see it. So it's not imagination. But I do wonder if when we're sitting there looking at, I don't know, cat ball on the floor or whatever, and we say, you know, we're all thinking, I want that to light up, I want it to do this or that, whether it's a spirit lighting it up or whether it's actually telekinetic energy from ourselves. We're not thinking, yeah, I'm going to make that light up. It's unconscious. Yeah, you know, people talk about the unconscious mind. So I've gone off a bit a tangent there, but it's another possible explanation.
It just seems to be getting out of hand, but do you know what I mean? I mean, these things are all the rage, basically. I know kids love these things now, you know, same as like Furbies, etc. when they all came out. And then no doubt it'll probably die down after a few months, you know, and somebody will come up with something else, another toy. The mind is a very complex, and we only know a fraction of it. That's true.
It is true. Did you know, Scott, that and a top medical man told me this, that half of our brain we don't even know what it does, what it's for, which is quite staggering, really, because we know what a brain looks like. So we look at the brain and you think half of that we don't understand. We don't know what it does, how it works, and stuff like that, what it's capable of. So perhaps some people who are, you know, genuine psychic mediums that can pick up spirit or stuff like that may have knowledgeably or unknowledgeably developed, you know, that part of their brain, if that's what it is. And, you know, that's why they're able to do these things that most of us can't.
Dan Kelly's saying, I see a man in my shower once. I mean, I think I seen a little girl loud and cut one, but it was like a millisecond. You know, I looked up, I thought I saw her start peeking out from behind a bush, but then she was gone. I was the only one that seen it, so I had to kind of question myself: did I or did I not see her? You know, was it just my mind? Because we were investigating and we were talking about, you know, a little girl that we have picked up there. So, you know, as you say, Mark and his Eileen says that the mind, you know, is a complex thing. So because we were talking about a little girl, was it my mind that thought I saw her? I don't know. What about you, Beth? Have you ever seen a ghost, a spirit?
I don't think I've seen like a full-bodied apparition. I think I saw a shadow figure, or sort of a half manifestation, kind of, when we were at Wimmering Manor the other week. It sort of peeked out of the cellar and then ran back down, and we were like, no, that's where we're going. And then we got, after being in that was the second time we went down there, and the first time we got like hardly anything, and then we went back down again, and like the thermal was acting weird, like the light sensors were going off, and it had a complete different feeling the second time we were down there. And yeah, it was I didn't think that's how I would react to seeing a shadow figure, but I learned something new about myself.
It does set you thinking, but you know, when you think you see someone, something, whatever, it does set you thinking. Well, you know, I put a needle on the LPs. Evening, thanks for coming in. It does set you thinking. Did I see, you know, in my case, did I see that little girl? Did I not see her? You know, and you're wanting to see her again. You know, you're wanting that second sighting, basically, just to confirm that you're no insane, you're no nuts or anything.
Over the years, I've seen lots of things like you've just described. You know, for a fleeting second, an arm, a leg, something like that. But I've never seen what I called a full body apparition. And the one that happened in 1976 was in daylight, and it happened, I watched it for about 5 seconds before it disappeared. So I suppose that's the sort of quality that I'm looking for still. But you know, shadows, when you're in a place investigating and the lights are off, you know, you have to be, it's always better one of the big things I say, and people sometimes question me, is I was taught very, very young by Peter Underwood, who's quite famous, to never do a lone vigil. He said to me, "You never do a lone vigil, Mark." He said, "You don't know what you're dealing with. If there's any sort of trouble, you've got no one to help you." And he said, most importantly, if you do see something, you've got no other witnesses. So he said, you know, from the point of view of the technical recording of it, it's just you telling what you've seen. So although lone vigils, you see these really people doing a lone vigil and they've probably got a camera on them, whatever, but they're otherwise alone. It's all very spooky and that, but if there isn't another witness there, then there are always going to be questions.
I have seen two full body operas, a lady in serving Windsor clothes in Maid's Lodges and a French Air Force officer at a mess do a RAF Cultus Hall. My nan's mum often comes to me. I wasn't investigating either, merely attending social occasions. I've spoken to a few people, you know, that have been no investigating, and I've looked up and I saw somebody standing a corner or sitting at a table or something, and they look up and the person's just totally vanished, you know. But as you see, Mark,
there's a lot of people who say that, yeah, there's a lot of people, Scott, that say that you only ever see them when you're not looking for them. You know, that if you're on an investigation where you are purposely looking to find ghost spirits or whatever, you don't see anything. And then when something does happen, it's in a situation where you're not looking for them. I don't know. But
actually, I can relate to that, because at Loudon, we were investigating. We were getting responses from what we thought was a little girl. And I was just looking about, so I wasn't actually looking for her. You know, even though we were investigating, I was just kind of having a wee look about, and bang, she was there, then she was gone. So, you know, even though we're investigating, I wasn't actually looking. But I still don't know, I'm still putting that one on the fence, whether I actually seen this little girl or not, you know. No less I see her again, you know, and it's for a few seconds and maybe somebody else sees her, then you can definitely say, right, she was there. But, you know, that one's sitting on the top of the fence, you know. But anyway, moving on. So I just wanted to ask you about this, because I think it's a load of I mean, they're cute, don't get me wrong, and their heads spin round. I mean, their heads spin round. Reminds me of The Exorcist, you know what I mean?
See, that's what it is. It's the head spin round, and it's that weird little creepy thing about them.
Their feet turning as well. Are they haunted? I doubt it very much. That's just I was going to say professional opinion, but that's just my opinion, you know. No, stick it. That's what I say. But anyway, moving along, we're going to be talking about Hingingbrooke House, as I said, but Mark's got a little exclusive story to tell us first, if that's all right with you, buddy.
Yeah, that's fine. Beth has been to Hingingbrooke, so she will know full well that beneath the stairs are a couple of skeletons. When I was at school there in 1978, obviously the skeletons were there then, and they're in some very expensive handmade stone coffins. They literally have been made by hand, and there's a sort of round circle where and a little bit for the neck. It's shaped to put a head and a neck in, and then the rest of the body down. The skeletons first came to light in 1830 when there was a fire there, and it destroyed the staircase that they were under, and builders found these two skeletons and nobody knew where they came from. And when I was at school in 1978, it was thought that the skeletons were a nun who fell pregnant, got herself pregnant, because it was Benedictine Priory before it became Hingingbrooke House, and they felt it was a nun and her lover, and the prioress had apparently caught them having a lover's tryst and on the nearby Nuns Bridge, and they brought disgrace to the church and their own families, and so she hired some henchmen, and they were murdered and secretly buried beneath the stairs. And that was the official story when I was there in 1978. In 2014, not that long ago, parts of we don't know who these people are in the coffins, or how old they are or anything. So in 2014, parts of the skeletons were sent away to Cambridge for forensic examination. And lo and behold, they came back that they were a man and a woman. The man was particularly tall, 6'1". They estimated his height. The woman had got what they called birthing scars, so the bones where the pelvis were showed signs of that she'd given birth. But the most intriguing thing was the skeletons were found to be 200 years older than the date when the priory was there. So the thought was, either this can't be a pregnant nun from the Benedictine priory because the bones are 200 years older than the priory. So moving on a little bit, these specialists also concurred that these stone coffins were so handmade and expensive, and the condition of the teeth of the skeletons was so good, that these people were not mere nuns and lovers. They were very important people who were wealthy. And funnily enough, one of these stone coffins, this is when I'm at school there in 1978, at the back of the house, there was one of these stone coffins just laying on the ground. So you can imagine going to school each day and you've got a coffin in your school just laying on the ground. And I was at Hingingbrooke yesterday. They had a meeting, AGM, for the Friends of Hingingbrooke meeting. And lo and behold, this coffin that was there in 1978 that had since disappeared, I actually located it. I was pointed to it by one of the history masters. And so this coffin is sort of tucked against the perimeter fence. This is in the grounds of the school, within a stone's throw of the house, and it's hidden sort of by a yew tree. So it wasn't in the place where I remembered it being. It's been moved about 10, 15 yards. So I got a little bit excited because I thought, well, I'm finding this coffin, which I haven't seen since 1978. And I'm sitting there looking at it and wondering, I wonder if it was ever used, which is a sort of disturbing thought. But Hingingbrooke has been a school since 1970, and I'm pretty confident that that coffin has been there ever since and is still there. And if you go to the back of the school as a pupil, you can go around and touch it and play with it and do what you like. I took a few photos, and I'm going to basically write up what I told you there today. So we know that the bones from the skeletons are about 1,000 years old, and we know what we don't know is who they are. So 1,000 years on, and we still don't know who these people are.
So 1,000 years, I'll probably get this right. It would be 10, 20, 25.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah. Well, I think if I remember rightly, and I might not get this number right, but I will tomorrow when I write it up. I think it was something like 59 to 115 AD. So I think the priory, well, I know the priory was there roughly about 1170. So that would make the bones 200 years older. Now, one thing that is interesting, the nuns who came there in 1170 came from a nearby village called Elterslie. And if you know your English history, it's not unusual for bones to be carried around. near me, I've got the town of St Neots and I've got the town of St Ives. St Neot was a Cornish saint, and his bones found their way to a town that's about 5 miles from me, which has actually taken the name after that saint. Because what happens, these bones were consecrated, blessed, and people would come, pilgrims they called them, would come from miles to pay homage to these bones. And as a result, these pilgrims needed feeding and drinking and stuff. And so basically stores sprang up and places where these people could eat and drink, and towns grew. And we've got a very similar situation. There's a St Ives in Cornwall, which is, and there's also a St Ives here in Cambridgeshire. And that town was named after a farmer was farming, and he ploughed up a grave, essentially a coffin full of bones. And the abbot at the nearest monastery decided it was a Persian saint called St Ivo. And the town was called Sleep, but again, they built a sort of priory in honour of this saint. And the town was renamed from Sleep to St Ives after this saint. So bones being moved around and people coming to see the bones of someone thought to be a saint was quite common, and it was a way of bringing in lots of income as well. And I think that St Neot was from Cornwall, yet his bones are here in Cambridgeshire, and there's a lot of feeling that they were stolen because they knew they were valuable, which they were.
Do you think
St Neots is now the biggest town, the biggest market town in the whole of Cambridgeshire. And Cambridgeshire is a big county, and you know it all started because of some bones.
do you think these coffins have maybe been moved at some point then?
Well, I don't know whether the whole coffin has. One of the things they were going to do, which I haven't seen the result of, was to test the date of the actual coffin. Because in theory, if you find a body, you would naturally assume that the coffin was at least the same age. But you could get into a situation where you've come from Elterslie Priory to Hingingbrooke and brought these celebrated bones with you and then put them in a brand new coffin, you know. So, yeah, I'm not so sure about the coffins, but definitely bones were moved around.
So these bones could have been well travelled, for want of a better word.
Well, funny enough, there's a Scottish link here, Scott.
All the Scottish links everywhere. Scots are everywhere.
There was, I can't remember her name, but it began with P, and it's not Pandora, but it's something like that. And she was buried at Elterslie, and then they moved from Elterslie to Hingingbrooke. And if that Pandora or whatever, Pandonia, I think her name was, she was revered as a saint, I would have thought that they would have brought her bones to Hingingbrooke with them. But that's just my theory. I might not be right.
So have you seen the coffins, Beth, when you were there?
I did. It's sort of surreal to look at because they were just in like a little sort of cupboard in like a unsuspecting hallway, and then you open it and then there's just a glass or perspex.
You probably didn't realise, Beth, that the lower half of those skeletons goes under the floor into the corridor where you were.
Yeah.
You think if it was possible that they would move them to a certain place in the school, you know, and put them in a glass case, or I mean, I know that you got them down south as well, but we got abbeys up here. Dunfermline's one of them, where you've got the remains of old stone sarcophags, coffins. Can't say that word from English. And it does, as you said, but it's a real story in there, and you're looking at these things, and you think these were made hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and you wonder who the original occupant was. You know, these.
That's something we still don't know.
Has there been any kind of activity run about them?
What I can tell you, which is quite interesting, is when they had this fire at Hingingbrooke in 1830, the staircase was destroyed, and that led to the coffins being discovered. The Montagues, 1830, photography was in its very, very infancy, but the Montagues did have the sense to bring in an artist to draw what's there. And Beth, I don't know if you saw that, but to the right hand side of the door there was a picture of how the bones looked. Now if you look at the bones now, they look nothing like that, and I can shed some light on that. When I was there in 1978, those bones were not below glass, so Herberts like myself would pick them up, play with them. You know, the door was normally kept locked when we was there, but there was definitely not a glass covering as there is now. So if you look at those, when I put the post up tomorrow, Scott, I don't know if you remember, have a look at it. I'll put some pictures of the skeletons, and then I'll put the picture up of the drawing, and you can see the drawings look pretty much like your average skeleton in there, where the actual photos of the skeletons now, they're a bit hickledy-pickledy, aren't they, Beth?
Just a bit.
So when you
read about
that's he's the man responsible for that, Beth. So when you're standing there, you know, some people they can hear, you know, haunted objects. Maybe I know we're just talking about that, but you know, certain objects or graves, what they sometimes get this feeling that they're being watched or whatever. Do you ever get that round about these coffins? Both these. I know you've only been there once, Beth, but
yeah.
No, I mean, a couple of years ago, I went to Kimbolton Castle, which is not far from me, where Catherine of Aragon died, and the family that were there were the Montague family. They were different to the Montagues at Hingingbrooke. Well, they were the same family, but the ones at at Kimbolton were called the Duke of Manchester. And one of them asked me if I would go down into their crypt and catalogue the crypt. And that was quite spooky, because these were coffins that were from the 1600s. The Montagues were at Kimbolton from 1615 until 1950. And they've got this crypt. And some of those coffins, they're nearly all lead-lined coffins. And some of them, the outer part of the coffin, the sort of leather and wood, has completely decayed. So all you've got is a body inside what looks like a lead pouch, effectively. And I did find that a little bit spooky, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd love to go into something like that. We don't have it up here.
Yeah. Well, that was a privilege. I mean, you don't, you know, that's I've never had that. I've been into crypts before, but the Montagues are, you know, they're a lauded family. Lord Montague asked me to go in, and the Duke of Manchester is the guy who's basically the head of the family. He lives in the USA, and the Lord Montague, who asked me to go in there, he's in Australia, which is why he asked me. He couldn't just get in his car and drive and
come here.
You, to be honest, you couldn't do it, because the crypt was so full and the coffins were so decayed, some of them. One of the things that happened was people had the name plates that go on a coffin saying who's in the coffin. A lot of them had fallen off, and instead of being left with the coffin, they'd been put at the other end of the vault. So you've got this sort of heap of nameplates, and you've got a load of coffins with no nameplate on, but you don't know which nameplate refers to which coffin.
What goes where?
Well, the other thing, Scott, was the church gave me a list of there was about 35 bodies in their coffins. Well, they weren't all coffins. Some of them were those urns that they put cremations in. And he actually, the church gave me a list of who should be down there. And some of this pile of nameplates that I got, the names on the nameplate were not on the list that the church had given me. Remember, we're going back here, Scott, to 1615. So it's a long time ago. But to see coffins in that state, you know, some of them had sort of opened. But, you know, if you looked in, you could really only see the lead lining, you know, lead-lined coffins. Which I never really, I always imagined a lead-lined coffin meant that there was a coffin, and then where the wood was around the coffin, they lined that with lead. But they don't. Well, they didn't then. You were actually put into a lead canopy. So you can see like a body shape, and all it is sort of in a lead blanket. The rest of the coffin is perished and gone.
See, that's what I thought, though, you, Beth, as well. When you get a lead-lined coffin, you think, you know, you get the actual wood, and then inside it's with two coffins in one.
Yeah,
Yes.
when you think of lining something, it's tight to the outside rather than just you wrapped up in it.
I took over 100 photos, and there was a couple there that Lord Montague gave me permission to share and put in the dump. I'll send you one, and you can then see what you see. You know, well, if you strip off that outer, the outers were fascinating, because at one time they must have been really, you know, that sort of really almost postbox red leather, and then all these lovely studs. Well, over the years, that leather had sort of gone brittle and changed colour to like a pink, and it was sort of, if you picked it up and just pressed it gently, it would just, you know, snap in half like that, and it was just like a piece of paper, really. And that's just years and years of decay.
Eileen's asking, is the intention to rehouse the cadavers?
What, the Hingingbrooke?
I think she's talking about the ones at Hingingbrooke. Are they going to rehouse them or give them another, you know, a burial or a...
No, I don't think so. I believe when they were found in 1830, they were given a service as such, but it was decided that they should remain where they were found. Which, as I said, if you walk to the library at Hingingbrooke, the sort of carpet that you walk over there, underneath that area, their legs and their pelvises are. So you're actually walking on top of them at one stage. If you open the cupboard where they are, all you really see is the sort of top half, you know, and I don't think you can see the skull on one of them now. But they are definitely a man and a woman. And yeah, I believe they could tell that the woman suffered with arthritis. It's amazing, isn't it? You know, something from a bone 1,000 years old. You can tell that the woman's got birthing scars and that she suffered with arthritis.
Oh no, it's amazing what they can. I was going to say dig up half the bones. That's the thing, but they can find out half the bones. Did you realise this, Beth? Did you realise you were walking over most of the skeleton, basically?
I think on our little walk around, Mark did sort of tell us that that's where they were, and it did feel, you sort of go, oh, okay, and sort of try and walk around.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Beth. You know, obviously Mark's quite a very experienced tour guide, and his knowledge of Hingingbrooke second to none. What did you think him as a tour guide?
I thought it was a really good tour guide. The knowledge that we found out on that walkthrough was just, I don't think I've been to another place that has given us that much detail before. So we can't ask for anything else, to be fair.
It's really difficult because there are some people that go on investigations, and I was one of these type of people. When I first started doing it, all I wanted to do was see ghosts. So someone telling me the history of the place, I just didn't want to know. I wanted them to get out of the way so I could get on and do it. As I've got older, I've learned that sometimes when you do paranormal investigations, and very often, in fact, nothing at all happens. And so it makes sense to sort of appreciate your surroundings. And it also makes sense. One of the other things that I was taught, which differs to a lot of paranormal investigators, is when you walk them round, I say, do you want to know the haunted history? And 90% of them will say, no, see what we pick up and stuff like that. And then these investigations finish and there's no time. So they don't tell you what they picked up, and you don't tell them what's,
what matches. And
because on Beth's thing, I wasn't particularly a tour guide, really. I was there to host the paranormal investigation. Hingingbrooke hired me to do that. But I tell you what was funny when we're talking about the skeletons. In 2018, paranormal lockdown came in. Nick Groff from Paranormal Lockdown was absolutely obsessed by those skeletons. I've got a picture of what I'll put in my article tomorrow of him sort of standing over the skeletons.
You sent me that one earlier. I've got that picture.
Yeah, for the TV show. And the last place that the two of them had investigated was 30 East Drive. And he was running his show along the lines of the Black Monk at 30 East Drive, notorious haunted locations. I've never been there. And had followed him south to Hingingbrooke from, where are they? They're in Pontefract, in Yorkshire. So it was quite funny watching him saying this stuff when I knew that the skeletons were probably not, nuns. They were people, from 1,000 years ago. No. So I let him get on with it. And Katrina actually slept. If you've seen the TV show, she actually slept in there with them. So they say. I'm not so sure.
And I saw that Paranormal Lockdown program. I don't know. I don't like. I mean, there are shows out there that are a load of balls. Let's face it. No point sugarcoating it. They are a load of crap. But then you get to watch some other shows, and you start to think, well, maybe no. But I mean, obviously we've spoken about this before, Mark, about the Paranormal Lockdown showing, the activity that they seem to have got when they were doing their thing compared to activity that you've had, and you've been there a lot longer.
Yeah, well, I was of the opinion, if you ask me about Paranormal Lockdown, I'd say that program was made for entertainment purposes only. I would say that they were very pleasant to me and very civil. They, some television stars are up their own backside, aren't they, and stuff like that. They weren't at all like that, but the show portrays them as being in the place alone with their cameraman, Rob Safi, who was the actual director of the program. And I would say they had a crew in there of at least, when I first went in there was a crew of at least 8 to 10 people on top of Rob Safi, Katrina Weidman and Nick Groff. So that already was making me think, well, if you're portraying on your program that you're locked up here for 72 hours and you've got all these people, there's a funny part on the show when they're in a room called the reception room, or sometimes called the bridal suite. And lots of viewers phoned in because this particular room has got a little balcony near it. And they saw a figure. The balcony is out, the window is there, you undo the window and you're on this little balcony. They saw a figure run across the balcony. And I contacted Rob Safi and he said it was one of the cameramen. He said it wasn't paranormal.
Because I liked the programme. I did like it, but my favourite bit of the programme was the theme song. Because obviously Rob, he wrote the theme song.
Yeah, he wrote the theme song.
And
Heaven and Hell.
I had that as my ringtone on my phone
Yeah.
for, I don't know,
Yeah.
long time.
He was a really
that's
nice
fine.
guy. He was the man who did all the preparation. He was the man who started emailing me. He was the man who said, you know, where can I find evidence of this for the TV program? So I led him to Huntingdon Library and the Norris Museum in St Ives and told him, you know, he'd find stuff. So he was basically, if you like, the brains of it.
The
He was
brain
the man
behind the
who
operation.
he put it all together, pulled it all together. Yeah, very nice man.
I'll stick these comments. I've got two questions for you, actually, Beth. Bear with me, guys. East Drive is overhyped. See, I'm still in I've never had the chance to do East Drive about 2 years ago with GSI. They phoned us on the Monday and says, look, we've got East Drive on Wednesdays, what I come down, but it was just too short notice for us to get down there. So we decline. I says there, if he gave us maybe a week's notice, then it might have been doable, but 2 days, you know, could babysitting and all the rest of it. I was just but I don't know about East Drive. I'm kind of 50-50 with East Drive. Is it I don't know. I tell you, it's a place you'd need to go to and experience it for yourself. Because I've known people who went and
I've never
loads of stuff, but I've known people who went and did nothing.
My gut feeling when I first heard about it was, this is fake. Now, I've got no reason for saying that other than gut feeling. But I've been to a lot of places and, you know, they are, as Eileen says, they're overhyped. I know a lot of people who've been there. I know one person who's been there and she was quite taken in by it. She said that she had activity. But I would say I know another 9 people who said, well, nothing really happened.
Just before I start his comments up just after this wee bit, folks. But you say, you know, somebody went there and there was activity. Do you guys think maybe that's because she went there knowing the history of it and she'd watched countless programs, and so her mind was kind of expecting stuff to happen? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, possibly, but I would like to think that. I mean, the way I was taught to investigate, and that was a long time ago, but I was basically taught to, when anything happens, instead of trying to prove it's paranormal activity, prove it isn't, and adopt that attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start removing all the items in saying, well, you know, in such a fashion, and you say, you know, take those all away, what you're left with is possibly the truth. But I've seen too many people on paranormal investigations and something happens, and then instead of trying to debunk, they're actually pro-bunking it.
They're trying to prove it's paranormal rather than it's not. What would you think, Beth, about the, you know, that woman was already in the mindset kind of thing that something was going to happen? I can't hear her.
No.
Can I hear you? The sound's gone. You've muted yourself, Beth. I'm trying to unmute you, but it says you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you now. You totally went.
See, it's that black monkey does that, you know.
They don't want us to talk about them. But no, I think if you go into somewhere and you have an idea of what is the reported stuff, there's always that thing in the back of your mind, like, am I just going to see it or hear it or experience it because that's what I am expecting?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the dark and nothing's happening and it's silent, your mind will play tricks on you, and we all know it does. But and then it will more likely play tricks on you to what you're expecting. But then if you get the evidence to back it up, you kind of have to move away from
I made that up. That was just what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt. But if other people experience the same thing as you, if you get it on a recorder, camera, whatever, you do have to then go, okay, so that did happen. Why? what made that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, try and prove everything. It goes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I've got questions for you lined up here. Variation about 2 years ago now, we Spig, a team in Glasgow we were quite close with, and there was about 8 or 10 of us there, and we were in. It was it was a gym hall, and we all came out into this wee small corridor. We were going to another part of school, and we came out into the corridor, and there was a little girl says, "Hello," or was it hi?
Hi, I think.
It was hi. Hi. Everybody stopped at the same time and just looked at each other, and we all said, "What did you just hear?" And everybody said, we girl. So we all heard this, and the fact that we all stopped at the exact minute, the second, when we heard that wee girl saying hi, also there was no wee girl there. So as when you get stuff like that, you think, that's the good stuff.
There is another thing,
that's
Scott, in the returns flip side of what Beth's just told you. When I go to, when I am at Hingingbrooke, I always say to groups, do you want to know the haunted history? 90% of them say, no, we'll see what we pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I was actually taught the opposite way, that yes, you want to know as much information as possible, because if you know what's been reported there, if you don't know, you may miss something very subtle that's actually very important. So
there's got 2 sides to every coin, really.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of, I think it's a kind of thin line. Somebody, I could give you maybe somebody you can maybe call out for or whatever and see what happens. I don't know. It's a kind of double-edged sword, maybe. That's the right saying. Right, so Beth, I've got Daniel's asking what got you into ghost hunting. So one of the comments, I did get rid of them eventually.
Well, I've been into the paranormal stuff since I can really remember, like watching, like growing up watching like Most Haunted and all that stuff, and I can always remember your vet screaming down the corridors when something moves or whatever. Stuff like that. And what really got me into I want to go investigate is a couple of years back when my granddad was in hospital. My dad, he was really ill. My dad was staying overnight at the hospital with him, and one night he sort of went into like cardiac arrest. My dad started giving him CPR before the nurses turned up, and when they turned up, he walked away. And he walked to the window, and the other side of the window, looking back at him, was his mum, who died the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around and was like, "No, you're not having him now. Not yet." And he pulled through the night. And my dad is one of those people who, not a believer, who doesn't see ghosts, that ghosts don't exist. But he saw his mum that day. And I was like, there's something about stories like that are so like simple, but you go, there's something there. And like, and I know what my nan looks like, and you wouldn't mistake her for anyone else. She had a very distinctive look, and it's not like you would see her walking down the street like and have to double check, like, oh, was that her? No, you would know, and especially if it was like clear as day. And I think he even asked the nurse and was like, there was someone out there, like, and she was like, you can't get out there. It's just like an enclosed courtyard that only like maintenance can get to. And he was, yeah.
It's things like that, your dad's seen his mum, so, I think circumstances, okay, Dad, just, you know what you saw, so, just think about it, try and convince them, right, well, you've seen it, so it must be true. You know it's true because you've seen it, I just give the guy room and just say, well, you say you saw that, that's fair enough. Just don't dwell on it, but you know, trying to work it out. I mean, my dad was the same. He swore blind. Nothing after you shut your eyes, you're dead, you're gone, you're buggered. End of it. Blackness, you know. But then he came through to me about 2 or 3 years after he passed, you know. Nick Croft was kind of claiming he was personally being followed, haunted and singled out by a spirit. He was claiming to be followed home by them, and his family was in danger.
Wasn't that the
Was that an American one?
Yeah, wasn't that the Steve Mackey one? Where they went to Steve Mackey's music world and were summoning the devil.
I remember it was an American one. I might be wrong. Put a needle on, it's asking what hunch you got. What ghost hunch you got?
So this weekend we are in Stratford upon Avon, doing full staffs at Tudor World. And then after that we've got Dead Street School on the 30th of August. And then we've got loads of stuff coming up through September to October. Big Halloween weekend, obviously. We're doing 4 venues over 2 nights, so we are all over the country.
It's going to be a busy lady. East Drive was flat. Scary Sign was the neighbour.
I've heard that before.
Is that the lady with the black hair? Is she dark coloured hair, the lady? I watched a thing in East Drive. I think it was actually Most Haunted. No, it might have been Paranormal Lockdown. It was one of the two. And they were talking to the next door neighbour, and she was giving them all the story. No disrespect to the woman, but she was giving it all, you know, it's this in my house is haunted as well, and this has all happened, and blah, 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 you know. Never been East Drive, to be honest, I won't go. It's not very good. Eileen's saying that's her. Nick Croft felt the Black Monk was reaching out to him at home, and he came over to do a full weekend in East Drive. I don't know, you see, again, the jury kind of has to be putting that one. I'll stick one more question up for you, Beth. Sorry, Dan, I could put one more up, and then we'll talk a wee bit more about Hingingbrooke. If you could investigate, actually, you could answer this as well, Mark. If you could choose a place to hunt, where would you go?
My bucket list place would be there's loads. Vlad the Impaler's Castle in
Dracula's Castle.
Yeah.
Ghost Adventures did that, and they go in touch with them.
We don't listen to them.
They got a holiday, Dracula and some demons as well, turned up to the party as well. You know, so you'd go to Dracula, Mark, where would you? I know you've been kind of all over the place, but there's got to be one.
Without doubt, and I'm hopefully going to achieve it this year, but I don't know whether I will. I've got some inside contacts. Tower of London.
Oh, I've been at the tour three times. I've been at tour. I would love that. Oh, that'd be a good
I don't know how it's going to pan out, but I know somebody that can take me in there at night. You know, quite legally, and without me being a.
I'm glad you had it legally, but
yeah, that's my hope. I'm not going to say it'll definitely happen, but I'm pretty confident that it could.
It's when you think of the history there. I mean, I've been there 3 times, as I said, and the most remarkable. I mean, it's a remarkable place, as you guys. Have you been there?
I haven't. It's one of those things that I go to London and I need to go, and then I just don't end up going.
It's remarkable. It's an amazing place, but it's a fantastic place with the history. But the thing that really got me was the graffiti. And the cells.
Yeah, the thing what I've been told from people who work there is that places that you're allowed to go when you visit are not the places you really want to go if you're looking for paranormal activity. So I'm hoping they'll take me to these places. But
you want to get into the good stuff. You know, the dark tunnels and all that kind of, that's the good stuff. You know, don't get me right. The other bits that you're allowed to go in are amazing.
Well, the beefeaters live there, so they know the places where things happen and tend to get reported. So generally, you can't go to those places as a visitor. But as I said, I've got somebody he's actually a tour guide, and that's what he does. He takes people in there at night and he takes them to these various places. So I'm hoping that's going to go. I'll tell you what I must tell you, Scott. I don't know if I told you this before. Getting back to 30 East Drive, Carl Beattie, when Most Haunted visited, this was the famous episode where he had a rope round his waist. And I challenged him and he banned me from his Facebook page and stuff like that, and went to the trouble next day to film a video that you can still find on YouTube, where he said it was a camera cable, and if the camera's under infrared light, it looks white, as this rope did, as opposed to its normal colour. It isn't. And that was his explanation. But what he doesn't say, and he doesn't show it on his explanation, if you watch the clip where he appears to have a rope round his waist and get tugged back, there was a camera cable running the full length of the stairs. As you look up the stairs on the right hand side, it's black. So he was saying that the camera cables appear white, and that's arrogant. I didn't like him at all.
No, I've seen that video where he's standing explaining, you know, what actually happened, but I've seen the video where he's pulled, and it's pathetic. You know, I don't think people make sure we do for this, but I mean, it's a load of ball, even not in real life. You know, you don't stand with that, not unless you've got a wee problem in the basement. You know what I'm saying?
The key, though, that hardly anybody mentioned was if you look at that clip where he's got the rope, don't look at him. Look down the right-hand side of the stairs as you look up it, and you'll see a black camera cable running the full length of the stairs, which totally contradicts what he was saying in his explanation.
Eileen's point as well. The knife in the couch was well done. The knife, you see the knife sticking up. The other thing, another video I watched, East Drive, I don't think he was aware that somebody behind him was actually filming, but he had a knife up his sleeve, and he's in a bedroom, and you can see him physically going like that, and then he walks into they all walk into the room, and he walks out of the bed, and the hands go into the head, and he's, oh my God, oh no, there's a knife on the bed. I don't think he realised that some guy was behind him, filming, taking it out his sleeve. You know, you think, and it's just, it's crap like that, you know. But I watched the one he gets hauled up, and then I watched the explanation. Or I hate see folk do that, but the explanation for it, box, basically. You know,
as I said, you can prove it yourself if you look at because the clip is still about on YouTube, where you see him come a really strange angle at the top of the stairs. You can see this white rope, but if you look at the right-hand side of the stairs, you'll see a black cable running the full length of the stairs.
And he also didn't realise. But moving on, I know we've been on for over an hour. I'll wind up soon. But what I want to do is, Beth, you were at I was going to say Tower of London. You were at Hingingbrooke House.
Yeah.
And you did an investigation, is that correct? So what I was wanting you to do is to tell us about your investigation, any names you might have picked up, whatever, and then see what Mark thinks of it.
So we didn't really get a lot throughout. Other people got stuff throughout the night in their little groups, but in our group we really only got something in that like sort of parlour room up
reception
on
room,
the first floor.
the bridal
with like the little bathroom off it and stuff.
Yeah.
We done some like scrying in there, and on the thermal, throughout the scrying session, there was a sort of human-like figure stood to the right of whoever was scrying. Then as soon as I stopped scrying, it disappeared. And we would move around with the camera. We couldn't get it to like reflect off anything. And even if we were stood in the same place, as soon as the person scrying stopped, it would go. So we're like,
well, I can tell you that room. If you said to me, what are the two areas where you'd suspect to get activity? One would be that reception room. Yeah. Normally, people are affected, especially women, quite emotionally. I've seen countless people, actually in tears, and they're crying and they don't know why, and there's a feeling of sadness about them and stuff. And the other area is the actual main staircase, the grand staircase. Yeah. They're where most people report things.
Yeah, and we didn't get the sadness in that room, but we got more of a defensive masculine energy that it didn't respond to women asking questions. It would only respond to men. Like even in like the scrying, it just wouldn't. It felt really heavy in there. And one of the guys that done the scrying, he sort of like completely zoned out, and he couldn't get out of this sort of weird trance that he got in, and it was like someone was like pushing down on him.
Yeah.
And obviously then we saw the figure in the thermal, we were like, okay. But yeah, it was quite interesting in there.
Yeah,
you did have that weird feeling in there.
Interesting houses. You've got about 900 years of history there, so it's a long time.
You think you were saying that I spoke about this on shows before? It's when when we're investigating, sometimes we'll get a spirit, who, what you said, won't answer the women, they won't answer men. But then you get spirits that won't answer women and no answer, vice versa. Do you think maybe when you get a male spirit who won't answer women, do you think maybe that's because the time period that they come from, that was the way, we all know in the 1600s, women were kind of, down there, men were up there, women should be seen, not heard, all that kind of stuff. Do you think maybe because of the time they lived and he still holds on to this belief?
Potentially, yeah. And I think it's not even just the way that they wouldn't speak to a woman, it's the fact that I think women now we are, how they would see is talking like men. Like we are asking them to do stuff rather than just being like, oh, would you like me to do anything for you? And being like that subservient person that they're put two equals. And I think if we time travel back and try to do that to a live person in that time, they'd be like, whoa, what's going on? And so there's no reason why that shouldn't be their attitude now, if they are still with us.
We find the men thing quite common, dealing with the ancient spirit of social standing. Would you think, Mark, do you think maybe that's why you get these spirits sometimes who just refuse to talk to women or answer them, whatever?
Yeah, possibly. I think that there are other factors to take into consideration. For instance, if you've got a female spirit and she won't talk to a man, very possibly in life she was badly abused by men and stuff like that, and so she doesn't, she's now in a position where she's got a choice and she doesn't want to talk to them. So there is most definitely, without doubt, instances where you pick up something that's communicating and it will only communicate with men, or it will only communicate with women. Very often when we're trying to get some form of communication, if I'm getting nowhere myself, I'll ask one of the women in the group to to try.
I'm glad you said that. I'm just going off topic for a wee second here. I'm going to get a question for you. I put this question off months and months and months ago. Do spirits hold grudges? You know, if you've fallen out with somebody in this life, you know, for whatever reason, and you pass over, do you still hold that grudge against that person? Just what you said there, Mark, you know, maybe that woman's been wronged by men or an individual man. Yeah, spirits do carry grudges over to the other side, basically.
I don't know
Depends
to answer that
how
question.
bad they've been wronged.
Yeah.
It's just a random question, you know. It's just.
I think it's like people, you know, men or women. You meet people in the street. Some are very amiable, some are aggressive, some will ignore you, and I think it's not too dissimilar to that, really. But to answer your question honestly and truthfully, I don't know.
So I've started a thing every week on Facebook now, usually Tuesday or Wednesday. Well, I just ask a random question, and some of them, I've got a list of questions that are coming up, and some of them might sound them as stupid questions, but sometimes a thought pops into my head and it just goes round and round. I mean, last week's question, I'll ask you guys where you're on, actually. Last week's question was basically, we know, well, as far as we know, that after we pass over, we're free to roam anywhere we want, you know, whether it be county, country, wherever. You know, as I said last week, spirit on vacation, basically, you know. The evidence might suggest vacation, no doubt you guys have had this, and you'll get a spirit with, you know, we've had French, American, Irish, Scottish, English. You get a spirit with a different accent, you know. Could that be a spirit who is passing through, who's visiting that particular place that you're in? I know what I mean.
No, I don't see.
You know.
Yeah. But I don't see why it couldn't be that, because I know you've got like the famous example of like Anne Boleyn goes between a couple of different places, and obviously they'll have seen in multiple places at different times of the year or whatever. So if she can do it, what if it's good enough for her? Why isn't it good enough for everyone else?
True. What about you, Mark?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, generally speaking, I come from a background where most people tend to haunt a place that they extremely disliked or really liked, and you know, you'll get a lot of battlefields where, you know, guys fighting a war and he gets bullet through his head, dead. He doesn't get time to think about it, doesn't get time to die slowly or anything, gone. And they say that sometimes their spirits will remain in that area. Whether they can roam elsewhere, I don't know, but I would like to think that they can, because we're not in a room or something like that for eternity or whatever.
It's interesting, Beth, you mentioned Anne Boleyn, because Mark and I have spoke about this. It was a show ages ago. I don't know if you remember, Mark. Also, Anne Boleyn is said to haunt, you know, I think it's 12 different locations. Salisbury Hall, Hampton Court, Hever Castle.
Yeah.
Spoke about this, Mark, and our theory was that these places might be haunted by a lady, but because that building is associated with Anne Boleyn, you know, people just automatically think it's Anne Boleyn. But it could simply be, you know, an old lady of the house or a chambermaid or, you know, a servant or whatever. But people just assume, oh, well, Anne Boleyn lived here for 2 months,
well,
so that must be Anne Boleyn.
One of the most, I can give you a perfect example of this. I live in Huntingdonshire, which is 35 miles by 25 miles, not very big. Its most famous son would be Oliver Cromwell. If you go on Huntingdon Market Square, and you'll see it in my book, Scott. There are 3 venues there that are allegedly haunted by Oliver Cromwell. But I've investigated them in great detail, and I've found evidence of paranormal activity, but none of that evidence significantly says it's Oliver Cromwell. I think a lot of people, they get a haunting and they associate it with the most. I think Cromwell, actually, there's about 15 places he haunts, and there's only one of them. I think it's a place in Norwich. His portrait as a young man was on the stairs there, and someone said that he manifested, and it was Oliver Cromwell. He wasn't famous until he was quite old. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but these three on the Market Square in you can stand in the middle of the Market Square and throw a stone at all 3 of them. They're that close. And yeah, although there's reports of paranormal activity, there's no report saying I saw Oliver Cromwell, or I heard his voice, or whatever like that. So I think that there are a lot of cases where famous people are said to haunt a place purely because they're a famous person.
I mean, I'm not saying it's no underline. I'm just saying it's again, it's a theory of everything. Paranormal as a theory, But just before we wind up, Beth, also any more about Hingingbrooke House that you experienced?
I think it was just that, and some just weird feelings around the area, and I think in the library we got some weird feelings, but that was it for us. But other people got very good evidence. But so we clearly weren't the chosen team that night.
No, it's strange going in there when you've all gone, and I go around and check the lights are off and stuff like that. It's quite spooky then.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because obviously the teams are in there all night building energy, and then we just go, and then you're left to deal with the energy we've built up.
Is that not the best time, but Mark, when the places, no disrespect to the public, but when the place is absolutely, you're the only one. I would love that. You're the only one there. Yeah, well,
there is another person there. There's normally 2 of us. I'm not on their payroll, so there has to be a member of staff to lock up and set all the alarms. And while they're setting all the alarms now, I generally walk around and make sure that all the lights are off and all the doors, because the doors as well have to be shut, because obviously they're fire doors. There's items in there that are very valuable.
So has there been any time you've been locking up, that you've experienced something?
Never seen anything. I have experienced, and it's in my book, the very first time it happened, I was a teenager in the 70s, and I was playing in a 5-a-side competition in the sports hall after school. It was in the winter, so it was dark, and I went back to my classroom, which is the one next to the library, right opposite the Skeletons chapter house. That was my classroom, and work to do that night, and all the lights were off except for the inner hall. That's the one with the skylight at the top. And I went to the classroom, flicked the lights on, got my books, and I came out, and I was roughly where the foot of the stairs is. And from the balcony above with the staircase, I could hear footsteps walking, and they were quite distinct. So I thought, well, it's one of the cleaners. So I then shouted out again, and I got no reply. And then I ran. Yes,
I
was only 17. Nowadays, if that happened now, I would go up and investigate. But
you'd run in the other direction.
Yeah, I was 17. There was just one light on in the house, which is the inner hall where the glass canopy is, and that was it. Yeah.
Do you think maybe that after all the lights are out, people have all gone, the lights are out, doors are locked, maybe the spirits come out and think, thank God they're away, and do their own thing.
I think it's the atmosphere there when you walk around by yourself. You are a little bit tense because you're basically in the dark. So it's a big cavernous house, isn't it? So there is a little bit of apprehension as you walk around, but not enough to say I was really frightened. And I've done it so many times now, and I've not had anything. I'd like to see something, but I've never seen. I mean, there's been sightings of nuns on the stairs there. I've never seen. I'm really annoyed. These people say, "Oh,
you're the same as me, man." I mean, we've done investigations, and people have heard. Like so, that place I was talking about, we heard the little girl with Spig. There was a group of us there, and we were down the stairs, and everybody was, we were sitting at the bottom of the staircase, and everybody just kind of stopped and like, shh. And they were pointing up the stairs, and they could all hear footsteps. Mind that way. I couldn't hear nothing, and they're like, footsteps, nothing. Same as we did at a castle. I don't know, about 3 years ago. It was a ruin, but there was about 4 or 5. No, it was more than that. Maybe about 7 or 8 there. And what used to be the windows, everybody at some point or another saw what they described as a white mist going by different windows. And I never got to see it. What's wrong with me? How come I never get to see anything? Even when we do like Loudon, this happens quite a lot of people. It happened the other week when we were at Loudon. I was like, "Can you hear footsteps there?" And we could hear them. I couldn't hear nothing. I would just like to hear it once. It's not asking too much. To hear or see things, and I see deadly squat. And I think that's unfair. I'm going to.
You just don't like it,
do you know what I mean? I'm beginning to think that, Mark. You know that? I had a shirt in January. What's wrong with me? You know what I mean? We can't even know what's wrong with me. But just before we wind it up, Beth, is there anything you'd like to ask Mark about Hingingbrooke that you never got to ask on it? You go to a place and you're asking questions, and then you come away and think, "Oh, I should ask this or I should ask that." Is there anything that left you wondering, or you wanted to ask, basically?
I think the only thing that we were trying to figure out is where the sort of cellar went up to in the library. That's the only thing we were trying to figure out, because it looked like in the cellar there was some sort of passageway or something.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit on that. When I was writing my book, I was very fortunate to have a gentleman, he's dead now, God bless him, called David Hufford, who was Huntingdon's historian. And the house was sold by the Montague family in 1962 to Huntingdon District Council. And it sort of stood empty for sort of 2 or 3 years. And then it became a company called Ratty and Kett, who still exist. They're masons in Cambridge, and they do all the lovely buildings in Cambridge. And they were asked to come in and refurbish the house because it was in a hell of a state. And this David Hufford, who he got a tour of the house by Ratty and Kett, the foreman. And the way he described it to me was, if you were in the library and you were standing in front of the door, and then you looked to the left of the door, the sort of library book paneling that's there was a false panel, and it would slide back.
Okay.
And when you slid it back, they said to him, "For God's sake, don't step forward, because the steps and the stairs are gone, and you'll fall 12 feet into the cellar." So I don't know for certain, but I mean, he was in his 70s when he told me this, and he was in his teens when he went round. But he was a pretty impressive guy, and I wouldn't doubt him. But he described it. He was adamant he was in the library, and what we went through trying, if there's a secret,
all the books.
Yeah. But I've looked as well from the cellar upwards to try and figure it out. But they don't think this secret door was for any anything secret other than a shortcut to the wine cellar.
Yeah, 'cause it's like
What did
you
you-
see in, don't they?
Yeah,
Like you don't want to know what the servants do, so you just hide their doors.
well, what you saw as the library in their days when the Montagues there was their living room, the sitting room.
Okay.
So I guess if you decided, yeah, there's some nice pictures of it around, all lavish and silk drapes and everything, really, really plush. So if they were there at night and they wouldn't be watching telly because it weren't around,
Right.
and they fancied a bottle of wine, instead of having to walk all that way round to where you went in the cellar, little shortcut to the cellar.
Yeah, get a cheeky glass and
Yeah,
pack it up.
that's what I think anyway.
That'd be handy. Anything else, Beth, that puzzled you? Or
No, I think that was really it. That was the only thing that we were sat there and we could not figure it out. We spent ages looking through the library with our torches and stuff because obviously we were pitch black.
There's two buildings up here. There's shells now. You know, one's called Caldwell House, and another one is Dalfahan House. And Dalfahan House is massive. You know, because Caldwell House is quite big as well. That dates back to 1723 when it was built, but that date's disputed. But as I say, they're just shells now. But you do sit and wonder what they were like when they were first built. You know, when it was a working building. You guys know as time goes on, houses get sold, they get turned into hospitals or whatever. So you do kind of wonder, especially with Dalquaham. I say that's about twice the size of Caldwell. You think, secret passages and all the rest of them. There's got to be some, I mean, Caldwell got a basement, but it's said that the basement extends way, way beyond the house, but the land's all caved in. And I would love to get into it. But when we were there, I was down in the basement and I couldn't find any secret doors or anything like that maybe take you into the next part of the basement, And it's frustrating because your curiosity gets the better of you, and I'm just a nosy bugger because I'm a Glaswegian. I'm like eyes out, it's still game. People have to know, but I could not find. So before we find out, where can people find you, Beth?
You can find the group that I investigate on everything as Paranormal Presence, or my personal ones are Cursed Curious.
And young Mr. Mark there.
Basically, I tend to use just one platform, and that's Facebook. And I've got two groups on there. One is called The Haunted History of Huntingdonshire, which is a mouthful. And the other one is called Haunted History. I think Penny Morgan's got a group with a very similar name. I think hers is Haunted Histories.
Penny's is Haunted Histories.
Yeah, mine's Haunted History. Basically, everything that is Huntingdon group and anything that is outside of Huntingdonshire, I post in the other group.
So mine look out for Mark's page tomorrow. We'll look out for Beth's page as well. But look out for Mark's page tomorrow for the story on the coffins and skeletons that we were talking about earlier on, because I'll certainly be reading. But I'll keep a hold of you guys just for a wee second after we come off, if that's all right. Don't dash away, So a big thanks to Beth and to Mark. You will see them again, folks. These things, get rid of them, burn them, exercise. I don't mean take them out for a walk. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't bother. It's a load of balls. They're not haunted. Do you know what I mean? But we'll wind up there, folks. So thanks to my two guests and to everybody that watched. And we'll see you again on Wednesday when I'm on with Tracy doing our next part of our Tudor series. All right, well, I'll be back tomorrow with my stupid random question on Facebook. So watch out for that. All right, folks. So take care and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.